Pam, we are live, just so you know. And we are excited to be live one more time with this PMI on the air series, the live stream series. And as you can see, I have a very special guest with me today, Pamela Clapp, my chapter president, our chapter president. But before we go into our conversation with Pam and why we're here, let me just do my usual spiel as far as what this program is all about and a quick disclaimer. So as I've said before, our PMI CIC on the air is basically our chapter's effort to be part of the conversation that's happening on social media, add our 2 cents, in that conversation, basically bring people who are members and non-members to our platform as we try to grow our platform. And as I said, add our voice to the conversation. So we have I think we've done 5 so far. I think this is the 6th episode. And this is a very special episode because it is Pamela's first one with me. And it's also her last one with me as chapter president, because Pam is rolling off, passing the baton to Ingrid Holiday as of January coming up. And so I wanted to have a conversation with Pam just to kind of invite her and let her share some of her stories and her tenure as a chapter leader, as a project management professional, and any kind of tips and advice, anything that she wants to share. She has the floor to share that. Quick disclaimer, the views expressed on this live stream don't represent PMI, our PMI chapter, or our respective employers. They are basically our own views and thoughts, right, Pam?
That is correct.
Exactly. So don't get us in trouble. Full disclaimer. So Pam, how are you? Like I said, you are the current chapter president, but you are on your way out. But before that, let's talk about, let's do a quick introduction to Pam, because I think people have seen you, they've heard you in meetings, they've gotten your emails and whatnot, but maybe they don't know who you are, and we can kind of start there and progress.
Yeah, thank you. I'm excited to be here. I think this is a great opportunity to wrap up my 4 years as chapter president. It's been an interesting 4 years with COVID. It wasn't the term that I expected, but it was obviously the term I needed to serve on. So like Florence said, I have been chapter president. I've also been part of the PMI chapter for about 10 years. I'm a mom of 2 amazing daughters, a wife. I am a daughter myself. I have parents who live across the street. I'm a 2nd generation PMI volunteer and PMP. So I'm sure that will come up in my journey and as we talk about things. I also work at a local healthcare organization. I'm manager of strategy realization. So professionally, I oversee project governance, portfolio management, tying projects up to strategic priorities, balanced scorecards, running Smartsheet for my organization, just a kind of jack of all trades in the project profession. I still identify as a project manager as heart, but even though now I'm more in that project professional realm. So, yeah.
So Pam, now with your job title, it's very what is that, right? So how did you find this position? Like, how did you start? Do you want to walk us through a little bit about your journey to this?
Yes. Yeah. So I guess really let me talk about my journey of how I got even into project management and sum that together. I really, being a 2nd generation PMP, I don't know that I had any individual conversations about project management might suit you or anything with my dad. But I definitely about 10 years ago started thinking about what do I want to do? I really wasn't excited about the next educational journey and the position I was in, but I loved what I was doing. I had a great team I worked with. So I started looking at everything I was good at and what I enjoyed about my job. And with conversations with my dad and other people around me, project management was it. So 10 years ago, I made that switch from an accountant to a project manager. Never had done anything in project management. Started taking a PMP exam prep class through our chapter, just so I could learn about project management. I was not ready to sit for the PMP. And so over the 10 years, I really found that it's not even just the project management side of it, the working in waterfall or anything, really enjoy solving problems. And so my leader came to me really early on, and she was like, I see that we really need some project governance within our organization. Do you want to help me kind of figure out what that looks like? And so that really started my journey to where I am now. Did a lot of research, a lot of education, a lot of trial and error of what governance could look like for our organization. And so through creating that in our organization and through my work during the pandemic, pulling together our portfolio for the organization, which at the one time when we first pulled it together had 1,800 items on it. And we got it down to under 500 now. Yeah. But pulling all together, that is how I kind of grew from senior PM who was kind of doing this work to now having my own team that supports me doing that work. So, but yeah, strategy realization, people are like, what does that really mean?
What is that?
What are you doing? But for us, it means running that governance, taking those projects, tying them up to the strategic priorities so that you can kind of see how you're making your strategic priorities move forward. Are we doing it perfectly yet? No. Do I still have a lot to learn? Yes. And that's one of the things about my personality is I really like to learn. So I do get excited when I hear new things or I get to go to conferences and learn from other people.
Awesome. So you did a pivot, and I would say a very successful pivot. Nowadays, many people are trying to get into project management by any means necessary. So you obviously went through, you had your father, as your mentor, right?
Yeah.
So who else did you have when you first started? Or maybe even now, like who do you have in your camp?
Yeah. So when I first started, it was really my coworkers and then members of this chapter. I was going through the PMP exam prep class. So there were some of the teachers that, just always stick out in mind, Dan and Mary and them, they were teaching. And even the little things like we would have a lunch and learn going over questions and Dan would lean over to me and say the answer out loud, right? Like just giving me that encouragement that I actually was learning and I was able to talk and say the things that I wasn't, not educated, gave me some great confidence. And then my coworkers, I had some great coworkers that really took me underneath their wing. I remember one of the first meetings I went to, I had someone, his name's Tom, I still work with him, and he kind of just patted the table next to him, and he was a more senior PM, and he's like, come sit over here, and, I kind of watched and learned what he did, and he turned the project over to me in a very natural way, which was really helpful to me at the time. So really great coworkers who came around me and were like, oh, we're going to help bring her up in this. So
that's awesome.
And then today, like I have, I lovingly have the women around me, but I have one that I call my work wife, Callie. She's great. We always play off of each other, right? We're always asking each other questions. She's got really great strengths. And then of course my leader, she's always pushing me to, go and reach for the next thing, solve the next problem, educate myself in the next thing. She does a really great job of that, supporting me. So I those are the people that I look for that are going to push me forward at this point.
So when you started out, I'm sure in today's market, it's terrible, right? The job market. Was it something similar as far as like the job opportunities? Did you have a hard time breaking in?
Yeah, so for me, it was a super easy transition. I say it was a God moment for me because I decided that it was probably time. Like I really wanted, I had really done the self-reflection of these are the things that I really like to do in my current job. My current job makes me happy, but these are the things I really want to spend my time doing, bringing people together with differing opinions, ideas, getting people towards an end goal. I really enjoy working in details. Obviously, I was an accountant.
Yeah.
All those things. And so I kind of decided with my dad, that project management was it. And then I just happened to get told at work by someone that I knew that worked in project management, hey, we're going to hire an associate level. Maybe you should apply for it. Awesome. And so that was in January, and I started that May.
Wow.
Almost 10 years ago, exactly. So, coming up here in a few months.
Yeah, I'm sure a lot of people who will watch this episode will gain something from it, because in my circle, especially with the internet nowadays, like pivoting is a big topic. It's a hot topic, especially into project management. I think there was an article recently, like a Forbes article recently, where project management was in the top 10 disciplines for people to get into for 2024. It's a very, very happening space, to say the least.
It is. It is. And I think too, it was different. I'm in my early 40s, and project management, I don't remember in school it being a possibility for your degree. And now there's masters on it. Or if it was, 20 years ago, maybe it was so in the minority of degrees that I just didn't know about them. Mm-hmm. And so I think a lot of us, and especially the older generations, became accidental project managers. They were promoted into, or they switched into that role. And now we have generations of graduates who are coming up that this is what they specifically want to do. Mm-hmm. Obviously, PMI and organizations across the world have proven the value of having project managers or project professionals in your organization. Mm-hmm. And so I think the market is a little more difficult to get into. And also, we just went through the pandemic. Some organizations aren't hiring as much, and some organizations, unfortunately, still think project management is something that they can cut and still someone else can do it, right? A manager can just lead it, and they can, but we can make it more successful.
Right. So on that note, let me ask you this. It's a trick question, right? Because both of us are certified. Do you think in this day and age, it's necessary to actually go through the whole process of sitting down for the PMP, or go and do like a Google certificate or one of those, private non-PMI programs?
I think no matter what you do, it is important to be educated. Mm-hmm. I think that is the number one thing. Organizations, when I hire people, I do look for their certifications. It's not just enough to prove you have a degree. Now, depending on your years that you've served as a project professional, I might feel different. If you've been a project professional for 20 plus years, your resume probably speaks for itself, and a certification is a validation of your resume and your credentials, right? So I, of course, being with PMI for so long, do really support the PMP. I think as a hiring manager, it gives me a known certificate that I can say, usually with people who have this type of certificate, this is the type of education, this is the type of training that they have. If they have the CAPM, I know that they are a brand new PM. It's probably going to be one of my level ones or whatever that are coming in, but then they're wanting the education. They're hungry to prove that they know what they're talking about, and that they're probably going to continue to educate themselves, because that's one thing you cannot do. You cannot just have been trained 5, 10, 2 years ago, 20 years ago in project management and think that you can't evolve with it. The days of just being a waterfall person or an agile person are almost completely gone. You have to be able to flex and right size your type of project management for the project you're working. And you may be working 5 projects and need to run each one differently. And so I think that desire of education has to be there to be successful.
It's a must. It's a must.
It's a must.
Now,
that's what I started my day with, is a podcast, right? Like that's how I started my day, educating myself.
I do the same. There's always something in the background as I get ready in the morning to kind of get me, I don't know, in the mindset for the day. Do you have a favorite podcast? Maybe one around project management, not to put you on the spot. Do you have a favorite one?
Oh, yeah. I'm pulling it up right now to see what's on my list. Because I do have quite a few that are on my list that I listen to pretty regularly. There's one called Leading Transformational Change, PMI PM for the Masses, PMO Strategies. I like that one. This isn't project management, but I started listening to one called Squiggly Careers. And then PMI has one out there. There's a Leading Agile one. I listen to Getting Things Done is another one.
Awesome.
Coaching for Leaders. Yeah. So what I kind of just listen to what's in those ones. And if I'm not interested in the topic, I do kind of skip around so that I'm focusing on what I need to learn or where my gaps in my learning are.
Yeah, definitely an avid learner. Like, you're always out there filling your cup, as the saying goes. So, now with this chapter, you said you've been in your president role for 4 years. Were you involved beforehand? Like, how did you get to be the president? Like, what's been your journey so far?
Yeah. So I started out as soon as I got done with that first PMP exam prep class that I was taking, really to just learn in 2014. I immediately then started helping behind the scenes. I didn't have a certificate, so I really couldn't help teach the class or anything, but I could help build the documents that organize the classes, right? What rooms are they going to be in? Who's going to be the teacher? Started doing some of that work, which led into eventually becoming the director of education for Springfield, which is one of our 3 major cities, Peoria, Bloomington, Springfield. So we had an educational team at each. So I did that for a while. And then once I got my PMP, I became, maybe once I got my CAPM, I became my PMP, I became the VP of Education, which is a board position. So I kind of did behind the scenes, became director of education, came in to be VP of Education. And then from there, I stepped into the president role after, I believe, a year on the board and the VP of Education. I was ready to make that leap. And then I've been here for 4 years. And so after this, I'll move into the past president role, which, if we have chapter members, we're looking to update our bylaws. That's not something we've had before, but we really feel it's important to be mostly a mentor for the new president, but also the board members, to just make sure that there's not a knowledge gap between presidents. So I'll serve a minimum of 1 year doing that. And I'll probably choose a pet project that I haven't chosen yet, of something that will benefit the board or the chapter.
Well, one of them is already a given, because you currently lead the monthly member orientation meetings. Yes. And I know I saw the invites for 2024. So you are already, locked and loaded for that one. So you're going to have a full plate, basically, in 2024.
Yeah. Don't tell my husband that. Yeah. So if you are looking to join our chapter, or if you have questions on how to get involved, each month I hold a orientation, is what we call it, but it's really an Ask Me Anything. It's very informal. We talk about everything from how you become a volunteer. Some people have specific PMP exam questions for me, what materials I suggest. We go into volunteerism. We go into how to use PMI.org, how to use our website. things like that. What are the benefits? And so sometimes I just share my screen and we, walk through the websites and things like that. But join me. I think we have 8 people registered for the event this month already.
Yes.
So it's I really enjoy it. That's something that I really enjoy, is kind of more of that giving back, interacting with our chapter members.
That's a very good turnout. I was looking at the numbers. I was like, oh, wow. I guess people just want to make sure they catch you before you officially, vacate the presidency, but you will return. So
I will.
Yes, you're going to return. And we can't, I can't see you not be involved with the chapter, because you've done so much for this chapter. So I'm looking forward to working with you in whatever extra capacity that you you decide. Now, when it comes to the presidency and 4 years in, basically 2 terms, what was your biggest challenge besides the obvious one?
Yeah, so the obvious being the pandemic, right? And so I think the pandemic in itself was a challenge personally, because I do work in healthcare. So we were trying to do our best by our patients. I, of course, love to solve problems. So I wanted to be boots on the ground for that. So like many people, I went to work every day. And so then with the chapter, like it was an interesting shift, because we were already doing hybrid. So we already had the technology and everything to go virtual. And our chapter seems to have just responded to this virtual world. And while I think for me, that was probably the biggest challenge, is a mindset shift. That here I was excited to be in person with people at those dinner meetings that we used to hold and talk to people. And even though I identify as an introvert, I do love doing that kind of stuff. And so for me, that was probably the biggest challenge, of like a mindset of, now things are going to be virtual. How do I have a virtual like presence? How do I make sure when I'm coming into a chapter meeting and it's all virtual, I'm just not a black screen? Or how am I a personality? How do I connect with people? And so I think for me, that was probably my biggest challenge. We also, during the time of, that was right around the time that the chapters also stopped offering our PMP CAPM exam prep course. And so we did have like 40, 50 volunteers through that were volunteering to do that we don't have now. And that was hard, right? I came up through that. That was how I started volunteering. That's what really helped me in my career. And I think that was a challenge too, on how we reframe, how we offer education, and also what our offerings are as a chapter. So we went from putting a lot of energy into the PMP exam prep, but now we put just as much energy into the offerings that we have every month that will be for everyone, the ones that especially you've been doing for the last couple of years, Florence, because we've had an empty role to fill.
So obviously COVID, and then the mindset shift. For me, I would say I would have thought you would have mentioned the team, like the resources, like the volunteer.
That's So we really have struggled, and it not just us, but a lot of organizations who use volunteers. People just aren't volunteering like they used to. And so Florence, myself, the other, some of the board members were really a different breed. We're all in. Florence puts in more hours than I think she should towards the chapter. She's all in. I probably do the same thing. And the people who replace us may not be that same way, and that's okay, right? But we really, when we came out of the pandemic and it was time to start meetings and we were talking about, do we go back in person? And I was getting questions about this. It really came down to, we don't have the volunteer base to do in-person things like we used to. And the pandemic was hard for everyone. People work from home now, which I love work from home, but I worked from home today. So underneath here, I got yoga pants on.
Me too.
So people work from home. Once with the days they work from home, they don't want to get up, dressed, and go out at night. So even when we've offered in-person things, people haven't really wanted to do them either. But the volunteers, they're already home. Their kids are coming home from school. They're already in the house. It's a different dynamic. And they've been on Zoom or virtual meetings all day long. The last thing they want to do is sit at their computer where they've been sitting all day and volunteer. But we need you.
Yes, definitely.
And it doesn't matter if you have an hour to give every month or you have 10 hours to give every month. There is something you could do for the chapter to help spread the load from those like Florence or myself or others who are spending 20 plus hours a month supporting this chapter. We need you. And that's how we're going to be successful. And it's so rewarding. And we probably could talk about that a little bit, about how I feel like the chapter really has.
Yeah, let's get it. Let's roll into it. Yeah.
Yeah. So I've told Florence, I've told the other board members this. So, you know, I really do feel that the chapter has been instrumental in shaping my career to where I am now. So, you know, it really, when I started out, I was new in project management. I didn't have a lot of experience. I really thought, well, I'm going to be a project manager and that's what I'm going to do. And that's kind of my cap. And my expectations for myself were not that high. And so through volunteering, I really started to learn that my expectations of myself were too low. And I really felt like that as I grew up, whether it's because I had a speech impediment or I had a really hard time spelling, my grammar wasn't great, throughout my educational career, my early employment, people would point that out, you know, if I misspoke about something or if I misspelled something. One day I went to lunch at my first like real job and I had wrote something on a note real quick to someone, and then someone wrote a note back to me and put it on my desk telling me what I misspelled, right? Oh. So little things like that, but that set limitations in my mind. So speaking in public would never do it. Speaking like this would have never done it, right? Creating presentations that we do like every January for you guys, or even presentations to speak to my senior leaders at work, would have never done. But through finding the career that's actually right for me and through finding my love of education, I became knowledgeable about what I was speaking, and that gave me a comfort in actually presenting. So one of the things is for 2 years during the pandemic, and now that Florence does a lot of it too, I emceed every one of our chapter meetings for 2 years. I was the only one who did it. And that started giving me even more confidence. But even back when I was teaching the PMP exam prep class, I knew what I was talking about. I was the subject matter expert. Whether there was 10 people in the room or not, it started building this confidence that I had never had before. And I wouldn't have done any of that through my natural working progression. I would have never in my job day to day, in my career, stood up in front of 50 people and given a presentation. That just wasn't the type of role I was in. Well, I got that competency of mine built through the chapter, so that has taken me to be able to now speak at different levels, whether I'm speaking to a colleague of mine or I'm speaking to a senior leader, or I just presented at Smart Sheets conference this year. So that was my first big conference that I went personally and spoke at. Redney, who was our VP of Outreach before, him and I spoke on a virtual conference that they recorded a couple of years ago. We also did some education to a high school in Cebu, Philippines. I would have never done any of that if it wasn't through my volunteer work. And so really what it has done for me is it's given me a confidence. It's given me a desire to learn so that I have now exceeded my expectations of myself. And that is like such a crazy place to be in, because now I get to kind of live in this place of, what do I want to do next?
Yeah.
Like, where do I want to go? What do I want to be?
Mm-hmm.
What do I want to continue to learn about? But it was definitely freeing, and maybe that comes with age, but I do attribute that specifically to my volunteerism. I don't think that I would have gotten here today without it.
Yeah. So giving back, to the chapter in turn gave you, I guess, way more than you expected, basically. That's the message.
Yeah, way more than I expected. I don't think that I would ever have spoken on an event like this, not because I wasn't given the opportunity to, because I didn't have the confidence to. And so I really built my confidence, my public speaking skills, my verbal written language skills. And so that's what you want out of a volunteer role. A volunteer role should help you build competencies that you maybe don't have access to building within your day-to-day. And so those were things that I needed. So now I'm looking, when I move forward to whatever's next, what competencies am I looking to fill next, right? I've built these. I feel pretty confident with these. I don't get all the hives and the nerves, and I don't sit there and have to calm myself down before I speak. I can just speak. And so now I'm looking for what's next.
It's interesting. Most of the PMI people I've met who are very comfortable in front of the public or online on the screen, they've done Toastmasters. Did you do Toastmasters?
No, I have never done Toastmasters because I was too afraid.
Wow.
I was too afraid to do Toastmasters.
Wow.
Because I was like, well, that's outside of my comfort zone. So like this gave me a really like natural way. I didn't even realize that's what I was doing. Now, do I think I probably could go do Toastmasters and still learn a whole lot of stuff? Yes. Do I think it would probably benefit me? Yes. But no, I haven't done it yet.
That's interesting. In that regard, you are one of the unique ones, PMI people, who are not part of Toastmasters in some kind of way. That's very interesting. So how earlier we were talking about how you work from home today. I mean, I'm sure other times too. So with what you do, I know it's in a healthcare setting. What about the whole remote work conversation, get back to work and the hybrid, and what is your take on that whole controversy? Or is it even a controversy? Can you do more online? What is your take on that?
It's funny. So my husband and I have this debate all the time. I'm not sure that we ever land in the same court. So I really enjoy a hybrid working environment. I think for me personally, mental health wise, that is a good balance. I work from home 2 days a week. I go into the office 3 days a week. I need that, right? And it's good to see my team and collaborate in person with my team. However, I do believe that you can be just as productive at home online, but I think you have to really know yourself and have some self-awareness to know that if you're not, that you need to go into the office. So if you are not being productive and you have the opportunity to go into the office, maybe try it, right? Be honest with yourself. But I can see how some people are more productive at home. They have less distractions. But yeah, my husband, he is all remote. He thinks remote work is exactly where he should live. He's a very strong introvert. I live on the introvert extrovert line. So I do love being around people. I do love that socialization, but I do enjoy my 2 days a week when I get to wear yoga pants and a nice top, or even today I wore a hoodie with my logo on it. So it is kind of nice.
Oh, interesting. The other topic that's around, at least on the internet, is the whole double dipping that's happening in the project world, where people are working for two different companies and they're doing project management. And as a project leader, for your organization or even chapter leader, do you have any opinion on that? Like, is there a code of ethics, there?
I think for me, that's what it comes down is your integrity and ethics. So I have a very strong level of integrity, and it's something that's always been there. It must be how I was raised, but that is very important to me. And so I think that you have to be transparent with both organizations, that you are doing that. You have to make sure that they both allow that. And then I think it just takes an extra level of communication and time tracking to prove that you are being ethical in what you're doing. I think if you are not, then it is wrong and you probably should stop. But I have had my suspicions at times when I've worked with people that they could be double dipping, and it is upsetting, and there's no way to really prove it. But I think as a leader, I have very strong metrics that my team and I have that just work for us. We have dashboards. We understand what's working for us. So if I saw a major drop in productivity, I would immediately be like, what's going on? I wouldn't maybe necessarily go straight to double dipping. I might think, is there something going on in their personal life? Have a conversation. But I think as a leader, if you do have someone you suspect, have great, performance indicators set up so that you can, see if they're not meeting your expectations and stuff like that. But I have had my thoughts around the double dipping.
Gotcha. I actually feel the same way. I'm like, I don't know. It's like a fine line, like it's a.
It is. You gotta, but I think transparency is like the number one thing. But I think that's the whole point is some people are not being transparent, and that's why it's a conversation.
Yeah. A hot one too. So on the topic of prioritizing, making sure you're doing what you need to do, you have a family, right? I think you have 2 girls, a husband, you're a leader in what you do in your field. How do you balance it? How do you survive? Like, what's your self-care? Let's talk about it.
So first of all, I would not be able to do any of it without a very supportive partner. So my husband is very supportive. I will say that, like, without him, he knows that I am driven, that I am a career woman, and that this is, important to me. And then also I do live close to my parents, so they provide a lot of support for me as well. And then I would say I have a tribe, right? So we talk about the mom tribe or the parent tribe that's out there. I do have a great tribe. So shout out to all of them who drive my kids to school, pick my kids up for me, but it is hard. I also teach dance 1 night a week, and I do stuff within the arts for my children. I think it's very important. I usually am the one who takes them to dance or things like that. I try to make sure I'm involved in their activities as well. And I think as a working parent, if you're wanting to be all in at one place and all in at the other, it is very difficult. I don't say that I do it well all the time. I know my husband's always like, you need a break. So self-care for me looks like Disney. Disney vacations. Everyone who I know will laugh at that. I actually am drinking out of a Disney mug right now. So I, work hard, play hard, right? So we have in the last couple of years been fortunate enough to take a couple of Disney vacations and cruises, and that's been very important. But on the day-to-day, self-care is the littlest things. Getting time to write in a journal. Like, I don't journal, but like I have my task thing. I like pins, I like colors, I like things, like paper. Everybody, I love stationery. People laugh at me in this world. or, just like getting to make sure that you have a little bit of downtime at night. Listening to audiobooks is a huge thing for me. I listen to a lot of audiobooks that are non-work related. That's very important.
Mm-hmm.
So don't ask me what I'm listening to. It's nothing work related.
I figured it's a lot.
Yeah, but and you and I were talking about this, Florence. I heard this a couple of years ago, and then I heard it again recently. It's not really about like finding that work-life balance. It's getting an integration of the two together. And I think it's hard. Like I said, I don't think I do it well. I think that I do a lot because I can keep a lot straight in my mind, and I'm really good at organization and putting things on calendars and making sure that I understand what the expectations are. But it is like, today I had a doctor's appointment for one of my daughters, right? Well, I'm going to go to that. I'm not going to, if my husband's unavailable, I'm going to go. And usually I try to take all of those because it's important to me. So, I will make sure that I make up that time, or, I have my phone available to me so I can read emails and stuff like that when we're waiting and clear out my history. But it's that integration of your work into your life so that you can be successful at both. It's really, really how I do it, is just kind of chipping away when I can.
Gotcha. So there's no such thing as work-life balance as far as you're concerned. It's more integration.
Yeah, I think it's a nice ideal. But I think maybe as we get a little older, we realize that, we do have to work, and depending on what our careers are, some of us can't leave it at work. I do have people that I'm friends with, or, I do life with, that they definitely can leave their work at work. And that's amazing. And I applaud them for that. And I definitely don't feel like I always can. I don't know if it's something about my brain. My brother and I were talking about that the other day. We both feel that way. So maybe it's just the way we're wired. I think, Florence, you're wired that exact same way. And, I do give myself those times to unplug where I don't answer emails, or I don't look at the pings that are coming up on my phone. That's why I love to go on cruises. I don't buy the internet package. I do not answer any emails. I do not get any pings. I don't do anything. And I can just be away from the technology, which is nice.
So you go underground when you go on vacation. Yeah. You really do, like off the grid, I guess. Yeah.
Yeah, I put it on your calendars when I leave for vacation.
Yeah, you do. You do.
I say I am not reachable. And if we have something coming up, and so we had a huge event for our region and another PMI region, and I was a volunteer for it. And I was like, just so you know, these 2 weeks, was our chapter of PDD. I was like, leading up to it, if you choose the state, I'm not helping the last month because I'm going to be gone. Right. So that I do really try to protect that time as much as I can, because it's important to me.
So then how did you develop this sense of boundaries? Like, have you always been like that, or did you learn to actually,
I think it's learned. I think that, like I said, don't do it well. If my husband sees this, he's going to say, you don't do that as well as you think you do, right? Keep me humble. But I think for me, and I talk to new people when they come into our team, right? So every day on my calendar at lunch, I have a hold. I don't always take my lunches away from my desk. Sometimes I listen to an audiobook at my desk. And maybe I'll be checking an email. Maybe that's a time that I use to catch up on something in my personal life. But I have a hold on my desk. It says, just ask me if you want to book over this, right? So that I can give you permission to creep into that time. And then for my end of the day, the same thing. Like if I am I work 7 to 3:30 typically, right? We all know that flexes. I have a hold on my calendar at 3:30 to 4:30. Again, you can request for that time. And if I'm available, I'm going to give it to you. No questions asked. I'm always going to give it to you unless I'm not available. But if I have something that I really need to leave for work on time, it just protects me. So I tell new people, anytime that you start a new job, Maybe you're a woman and you just came back from maternity leave. That's another great time. You just got a promotion, you started a new role. You just got done with a whole group of projects, or that one massive project that you were working on is a great time to reset. This is a time to reset your calendar, to reset the expectations that I'm going to try to take my lunch every day. I deserve my lunch. That's legally what I get, right? So I'm going to try to take my lunch every day. I want my team to take their lunch every day. I want them to get up from their computers. I want them to go somewhere and take their lunch, right? I want them to be able to leave on time, right? I want them to be able to go home. And so if you can start putting these on there, and then if you get a email for a meeting or something outside of those working hours, that is a request, not an expectation. And so if that is outside of your working hours, have enough of your own intelligence to know that that is a request, not an expectation. And when you read an email, if you know the people that you're working for, you know what an emergency versus a non-emergency is.
Yeah.
And you're doing yourself a disservice by responding to non-emergent items outside of your working hours. And I know I do the same thing. I'll be like, oh, I'll just respond to this real quick.
Yeah.
And maybe for your mental health, that's the best thing. But if you know your leaders, they don't want you doing that unless it's an emergency. They're working at a time when fits for their life best. So they may be sending you an email at 9:00. That doesn't mean they expect you to respond to them by the time they wake up in the morning. They were working what time is best for their life. So you work, if you don't get to that until the morning, it's okay, right? And I wish everyone had those type of leaders. I've had bad leaders too. I get it. Not everyone has those same expectations, but I think we do ourselves a disservice. We're young. We want to make people know that we're here. We're going to work really hard for them. So we respond to an email. So every single time you respond to an email after your work hours that you didn't need to, it wasn't an emergency and it really could have waited, you just set the expectation that you're going to respond to emails that don't need to happen right away. Right. That expectation. So I think just over time, learning your boundaries, also have a really good working relationship to the people that you work for. My leader, she has on hers, it's something about my working hours may not be your working hours or something like that. Some quote just to let people know you don't have to respond right now.
Yeah.
I know other leaders have said, I really need you to use the delay in Outlook, right? Delay it to, now Outlook tells me they start their next day at such and such time. Do you want to delay it till then? Right? Delay send. So you can use those kind of things to help, right? But I think setting up some boundaries helps too.
That's great. Those are some great tips, Pam. You've given us more tips than I expected. Now, when it comes to, I don't know, your project work, so you have a lot going on. I would say, to me, it sounds like you guys are more on the PMO type, right?
Yeah.
PMO. So with this whole agile thing, are you guys doing agile? I mean,
we have a couple people, one specifically, actually Chris, he's going to be our VP of operations starting in January. He actually works with me and he is the one introducing more agile work into our project management.
Awesome. Okay. So where I was going with that question was, I guess you answered the question, is there a space for agile in what you are doing from being healthcare, highly regulated, and, you're in the PMO leadership governance space. And so I guess the answer is yes. You guys have made it a priority.
Yeah. So a couple of years ago, one of my coworkers, Callie Welch, and I even presented for the chapter. We came up with a rapid methodology that we were doing at the time. So PMI really supports right sizing your projects, right? We're building toolkits. So we want to know about waterfall. We want to know about agile. We want to know about all these things, because really we need to right size. And so I do support, and there is a space within healthcare to use agile where it makes sense, use waterfall where it makes sense, and not even no one's using all of waterfall, right? We're using a subset of waterfall. So like we even have like, these are your required documents. Usually you always have to have a charter. You always have to have a RAID log. You always have to have a schedule, lessons learned, closure memo. And then everything else is optional based on the project that you're running, right? And so that's how we've been able to then, as Chris has come on and has had more knowledge in agile than some of us waterfall people, to bring it into the organization. So there definitely is a space.
Gotcha. Because I know even with our chapter, we're trying to right size the volunteer opportunities and all that good stuff, having boundaries, making sure, like me, because I email late in the evening. I but that, again, like you were saying, it doesn't mean that you have to respond to me, right? So I guess as a leader, I do find it hard to keep myself in check, like put a boundary for myself. It sounds like, I know you think your husband thinks that you're not there quite there yet, but I think from everything that I've seen, I would say that you do have a good handle on boundaries and right sizing the opportunity for the people that you're leading, like me, for example. I'm going to throw a random question at you. I did not share the question with you. With me being in the role, when you see my emails and everything, what's the first thing that comes to mind? You won't hurt my feelings.
Oh, so the first thing,
my crazy emails.
Oh, no. So first of all, I don't think any emails are crazy. I do appreciate the level of detail that you put in your emails, right? You usually do give us pretty thoroughly thought out, right? I don't normally get something from you that I can't understand or comprehend. So I do appreciate that. I think it's not even emails from you specifically, but it is something that causes me some pressure, right? So we talk about how, stress is actually how you're responding to pressure. And so that's the way you're exhibiting, that. And so I think right now, if we shared what my phone looks like, there maybe be something like 4,000 unread emails through all my email accounts. But that includes like Ulta sending me things daily.
Yes.
But it's noise, right? And so I've actually done a lot of thinking these last couple of weeks. How is it going to feel to take the president email account off of my phone?
Wow.
I've had a board email account on my phone for over 5 years.
Wow.
And so to delete that, I don't know. How am I going to feel if I'm not getting emails from Florence, right? How am I going to feel? I went to the bank and signed over stuff this last week.
Yeah.
It's things like that. It's like you think about, Pam probably rolls her eyes when she gets emails from me, but I'll miss it. And I know I'm going to still get emails.
Yes.
I'm still going to be around. I'm still coming to the board meetings for another year.
Yes.
It's just, it will be different though, right? Maybe I'll enjoy it more because I'll be more in whatever you're emailing me about. I'll be fully engaged in. Right?
Interesting. Good. I thought I would just find out finally before you go. I'll find the real answer. So we have about, we're almost at the hour. So Pam, let me try to wrap it up. So like we've been talking, this is your last term. We're passing the baton to Ingrid. You're going to have, in theory, more time to yourself. In theory. Let's hope. So do you have a plan as far as like what your future looks like your future, I don't know, volunteering efforts look like? I know you plan on doing other things, but what are those other things? Anything that you can share now, or you want to surprise us?
Yeah, so like I was telling you, so past presidents normally take on a pet project, something that's near and dear to their heart. So I have a couple things that I think in the chapter I would love to, help with, and I'm trying to decide which one is most important to me. There is needs versus something that's like super important to me. So I know we need a lot of help getting our policies and procedures put together. That's something I definitely could help. But also, I would love to stand up a mentorship program within the chapter. And that would actually fill my bucket.
Yeah.
Really, really strongly. That would make me feel really great to be able to partner senior PMs with people who are just coming into the profession. So from a chapter aspect, those are some of the decisions I'm going to be making. With my extra time, hopefully, that I have that I'm not volunteering at the chapter, I am looking to get involved a little bit more with maybe some of the volunteer organizations within my kids' school. My daughter does band and choir, and they have their own volunteer things, and maybe starting to use my PM toolkit within that realm. But I'm not sure on that. So if my friends that are on there who keep talking to me about that, I haven't committed. But then professionally, we just went back into IT at my organization, the PMO, the strategy execution team. And I think there's a lot there that I need to learn, and I'm excited about learning. And I'm trying to decide, do I want to take PMI's portfolio certification, and which would be another huge educational time for me. So lots of ideas, but definitely spending more time with my family, developing my children, and developing myself.
Gotcha. This is great. And I'm sure you will get that squared away and figure it out. Project manage what your next your next chapter looks like. Now, as far as any final words to our current members or prospective members, do you have any any kind of special word that you want to leave us with?
Yeah, I will say, like, over the entire time that I volunteer with the chapter, and I'm going to continue to volunteer, and something that I would tell myself years ago when I started was, don't accept the limitations others put on you based on their limited viewpoint of your potential. Go out there, really, really try to do your best, discover yourself, be curious, go in and educate yourself, volunteer, if it's not with us, with someone else that can help build your competencies that you need to be so that you can be your best self.
I think that's a great call to action, a great message, Pam, to conclude on. As for me, I guess my last word for 2023 is to encourage you all to get on our website and go register. We pretty much have events lined up all the way through June. It's December. We've been working really, really hard behind the scenes with the professional development team led by Ingrid Holiday, and we have a lot going on. So please go on our event listing, go to www.pmi-cic.org, go to the events, click down and sign up. For instance, even this month, we have one final event on the 14th that you can still register for. It's going to be around AI. It's an AI topic, and it's going to be with other chapters, LA chapter, Phoenix chapter, Hawaii chapter, so many chapters. It's on December 14th. And then we're going to have our kickoff on January 9th from 5:30 to 7 o'clock on January 9th. And we're going to talk about what 2024 will look like. And we will have a special keynote on psychological safety and with Jessica Bench. And like I said, we have so many other things lined up on the calendar. You would be shocked to see the depth and the variety of the topics too. It's like AI, it's live events and agile, and pivoting in project management, or maybe out of project management too. Maybe you've been in it for a while and you're looking for your next act. So we have quite a few events already on the calendar for our members and our guests to actually sink in. And everything is virtual, so there's no reason why you should not register. And with that, I think we are now at an hour. So I'm going to say thank you so much, Pam, for making my 2023 live stream series extra special. We've had so many guests. They were mostly external to our chapter, non-members. And it was just such a treat to kind of close out with you being a member and being our outgoing chapter president, and a local, female leader in the project management space, to kind of hear your views on so many topics and areas. I will say thank you once again to everybody who's watching or who will be watching. I will make sure this live is on our YouTube page, is on our Facebook page, because we have different platforms that you can kind of play it back and come out with one or two lessons from what Pam shared, because I really think, Pam, you dropped a lot of gems tonight.
Thank you.
Even for myself, I'm going to sit back and watch it as a regular person and come up with my own takeaway. So with that, I want to say once again, thank you so much, Pam. I look forward to working with you next year in a different capacity, and it's going to be great. I have no doubt about that.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
All right. Well, you have a good one, everybody. See you guys in 2024.